you know, there are moments when you say something in anger and later wish you could take it back. Moments when your words cut deeper than any knife. Moments when your silence screams louder than your voice. And after that storm of anger passes, you're left standing in the wreckage of regret. Have you ever felt that? That tightness in your chest, that fire in your heart, that voice that says, "Why did I say that?" My friends, today's message isn't about suppressing anger. It's about understanding it. Because only when you understand the root can you stop it from controlling you. So today, let's dive deep. Let's explore not just how to stop getting angry, but why we get angry in the first place, and how to never be enslaved by it again. Anger itself is not the villain. It's not the monster we often make it out to be. The real enemy is our ignorance, our inability to understand what anger truly is, why it rises, and how to work with it. Most of us treat anger like a stain that needs to be erased, when in truth, it's a signal that needs to be understood. Anger is simply energy, raw, powerful, and neutral. What makes it destructive or divine is how we choose to handle it. When you feel that surge of heat inside you, the tightening of your jaw, the pounding of your heart, it's your body's way of saying, something feels wrong. It's alerting you that a boundary has been crossed, that something inside needs attention. But because we were never taught how to listen to anger, we end up reacting instead of responding. We shout. We slam doors. We hurt the people we love. And later we sit in silence with that heavy feeling of guilt, wishing we could turn back time. You see, anger isn't bad, it's misunderstood. It's like fire. Fire can cook your food, or it can burn your home. The difference lies in control and awareness. When we lack awareness, anger consumes us. It hijacks our peace, our judgment, our relationships. But when we bring light to it, when we understand where it's coming from, that same energy can be transformed into strength, clarity, and courage. Most people think the goal is to never feel angry, but that's impossible. Even saints and monks feel anger. The difference is they don't let anger drive their actions. They observe it. They study it. They let it rise and fall like waves without drowning in it. And that's what we must learn, not to fight anger, but to understand it deeply. Ask yourself next time you're angry, what am I truly angry about? Is it what the person said, or the meaning I attach to it? Is it the situation, or my expectation of how it should have been? That moment of reflection separates the wise from the reactive. Because ignorance reacts, awareness responds. And once you see that, anger loses its grip on you. You no longer become a slave to it, you become its master. So the next time you feel that fire inside, don't rush to put it out. Sit with it, watch it, listen to what it's trying to tell you. Because anger, when understood, becomes your teacher. But anger, when ignored, becomes your destroyer. Every burst of anger carries a hidden story. A pain buried so deep that we often don't even realize it's there. Behind every sharp word, every raised voice, every clenched fist, there's almost always a wound that hasn't healed yet. When someone snaps, it's rarely just about what's happening in that moment. It's about everything that moment reminds them of. The rejection, the disrespect, the loneliness, the feeling of not being enough. When we're hurt and we don't process that pain, it begins to ferment inside us. Over time, it becomes irritation, then resentment, and finally rage. But the root of that rage was never truly anger. It was pain wearing a mask. Because pain doesn't always know how to express itself gently. Sometimes it screams. Sometimes it throws things. Sometimes it walks away in silence. But underneath, it's always the same voice saying, please understand me. Please see me. Please don't hurt me again. Think of a person who gets angry very easily. Maybe they grew up in an environment where they were never heard, where their feelings didn't matter. So now, when someone interrupts them or disagrees, it touches that old wound of being dismissed. The anger you see on the surface is not hatred, it's a defense. It's protection. Because deep inside, that person is saying, I can't bear to feel small again. Or imagine someone who explodes when they're criticized. It's not always ego. Maybe once upon a time they were constantly judged by parents, teachers, or friends, and they learned to associate criticism with rejection. So when you point out their mistake, they don't just hear your words. They hear every voice that ever told them they weren't good enough. That's why their reaction feels bigger than the situation deserves. Because they aren't reacting to you, they're reacting to their past. The truth is, anger is like the smoke that rises from a fire. And pain is that fire burning underneath. If you only chase away the smoke, it keeps coming back. But if you look deeper, if you find and soothe the fire beneath it, the smoke disappears on its own. That's why healing is not about controlling your temper. It's about listening to your wounds. When you pause in anger and ask yourself, what pain am I protecting right now? You begin to see your humanity and others too. You stop labeling people as angry or toxic and start realizing they are hurting. Even your own anger softens when you see it this way. Instead of hating yourself for being angry, you begin to treat yourself with compassion. You realize you don't need to suppress your emotions. You just need to understand them. Because anger is never the first emotion. It's the guard standing in front of sadness, fear, or shame. Once you have the courage to look behind that guard, you'll find the part of you that's been waiting to be healed. And that's where real transformation begins. Not in pretending to be calm. Not in forcing yourself to smile when you're hurt. But in sitting with your pain and saying, I see you. I'm not running from you anymore. Because when pain is acknowledged, it loses its power. And when it loses its power, anger fades like smoke from a dying flame. People don't make you angry. They simply awaken the anger that already lives inside you. It sounds uncomfortable, doesn't it? Because for most of our lives, we've been taught to point fingers. Ifa, he made me angry. She ruined my day. They triggered me. But the truth is, no one can place anger inside you. They can only shake what's already there. Imagine your mind as a glass of water. If there's mud settled at the bottom, the water may look clear until someone stirs it. Suddenly it becomes cloudy and we blame the person who stirred it. But the truth is, the mud was always there. They only revealed it. That's exactly how people in our lives act. They don't create our anger. They just disturb the emotions that were already waiting to surface. When someone criticizes you, you might feel hurt or defensive. But that reaction doesn't come from their words. It comes from your own attachment to being right or your fear of being seen as wrong. When someone disrespects you, your anger might not be about their behavior at all, but about an old belief that you are not valued or worthy. What they say or do is just the trigger, not the cause. The real cause is internal. The moment you understand this, your life begins to change. Because as long as you believe that others are the source of your anger, you remain powerless. You will spend your life trying to control everyone around you, making sure they don't say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, or act in ways that upset you. But that's impossible. You can't control the world. You can only control your response to it. Think about it. Two people can go through the same situation, yet respond completely differently. One may explode in rage, while the other stays calm and compassionate. The situation is the same, but the inner state is not. That means it's not the event that determines your anger, it's your interpretation of it. Your mind decides what meaning to give it, and that meaning decides your reaction. When someone offends you, you can choose to take it personally, or you can choose to see it as a reflection of their own pain. When someone argues with you, you can choose to fight back, or you can choose to step back and see that their frustration might have nothing to do with you. That's what emotional maturity looks like, realizing that your peace is your responsibility. This doesn't mean you allow people to mistreat you or that you stop setting boundaries. Not at all. It simply means you stop giving away your inner peace so easily. You stop letting other people's behavior decide your emotional weather. You stop being a puppet pulled by other people's strings. It's liberating the moment you realize that nobody can make you angry without your permission. That permission is given in the split second before you react, the space between what they did and what you choose to do next. In that space lies your power. When you start seeing others as mirrors, everything changes. Instead of reacting with anger, you start responding with awareness. You ask, what part of me is being reflected here? What part of me still needs healing? You stop fighting people and you start learning from them. Every argument becomes a classroom. Every trigger becomes a teacher. So next time someone stirs your emotions, don't rush to blame them. Pause, observe what's rising within you. Because in that moment, life is giving you a precious gift, the chance to see what's still unsettled inside your heart. And when you learn to face that with understanding instead of anger, you step into a new kind of freedom, where no one outside you can disturb the calm you've built within. There's a tiny space that exists between what happens to you and how you respond to it. It's almost invisible, almost unnoticeable, but that space is where your entire peace of mind lives. Between the moment someone's words hit your ears and the moment you open your mouth to reply, there's a pause, and in that pause lies your power. That pause is the difference between reacting out of anger and responding out of wisdom. When you react, you hand over control of your inner world. You become a puppet pulled by the strings of your emotions. Someone says something cruel, and you instantly snap back. Someone ignores you, and you immediately withdraw or lash out. You don't even realize it, but in that moment you're not choosing. You're just responding automatically. Your body reacts before your mind has even had the chance to think. That's what anger does. It hijacks logic and makes you its servant. But when you pause, even for 2 seconds, something miraculous happens. That brief silence gives your brain time to process, to breathe, to regulate. You shift from instinct to intention, from impulse to intelligence. You stop living in autopilot reaction and step into conscious response. Have you ever noticed that after the storm of anger passes, you often say to yourself, I shouldn't have said that? That's because in the heat of the moment, your emotional brain, the amygdala, takes over. It floods your system with adrenaline, narrows your focus, and shuts down the rational part of your mind. You can't think clearly when you're reacting. You can only survive. And that's why people say and do things in anger that they deeply regret later. Because in those seconds, They weren't choosing, they were simply reacting to protect their ego or their pain. But when you train yourself to pause, to take that one deep breath before speaking, you give your mind a chance to return to balance. You allow the rational, compassionate part of you to come back online. You might still feel the fire inside, but now you're holding it instead of letting it hold you. You move from being a victim of emotion to being a master of emotion. Think about it. We've all met people who seem unshakable. No matter what's said to them, they stay calm, steady, grounded. It's not because they don't feel emotions. It's because they've trained themselves to wait before they act. They've built a habit of pausing. That's their secret. That's their strength. The pause doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise. Anyone can shout. Anyone can react. But it takes a truly strong person to breathe and say, "Let me think." It's in that breath that you reclaim your peace. You don't let the other person's chaos pull you into the fire. You become the one who chooses how to dance in the storm. Try this the next time you feel anger rising. Don't rush to express it. Feel it in your body. The tension, the heat, the heartbeat. Notice it, name it silently as "I am angry." Then ask yourself, "Vef, what do I really want to create right now? Peace or pain?" That one question has the power to redirect your entire response. Because once you become aware, you're no longer trapped in the loop of reaction. And yes, this isn't easy. It takes practice. It takes falling and trying again. But every time you pause, even once, you weaken the pattern of reactivity and strengthen the muscle of awareness. You become calmer, clearer, and more compassionate, not only with others, but with yourself. Eventually, you reach a place where someone's harsh words can't control your peace anymore. You no longer feel the need to win the argument or prove yourself right. You learn that silence in the right moment speaks louder than 1,000 angry words. Because responding from awareness doesn't just change your relationships. It transforms your entire life. You start to live deliberately, not defensively. You begin to see that your peace is not dependent on what happens around you, but on the wisdom with which you choose to respond. And in that realization lies the deepest freedoms, the freedom to remain calm in a world that constantly tries to pull you into chaos. The ego loves to be right. It feeds on being correct, on being acknowledged, on being superior. And whenever that sense of rightness is threatened, anger becomes its armor. You can almost feel it, the heat in your chest, the urge to prove your point, to make the other person see that you're not wrong, that you know better. That's not your heart speaking, that's your ego defending its fragile identity. Every argument, every conflict, every outburst we have with others is often not about truth. It's about validation. The ego cannot stand to lose because it equates losing an argument with losing worth. And so it fights not for peace, but for pride. That's why even when we know we're wrong, something inside us resists admitting it. The ego whispers, "Don't say sorry first. Don't back down. Don't look weak." And in obeying that whisper, we trade our peace for the illusion of victory. Have you ever noticed how exhausting it feels to argue with someone endlessly, trying to make them agree with you? Even when you win, do you really feel victorious? Or do you feel drained, disconnected, and hollow afterward? That's the ego's trap. It tricks you into thinking that winning an argument equals strength. But true strength lies in being calm, even when someone misunderstands you. The ego thrives on comparison. It constantly measures who's smarter, who's stronger, who's more respected. It needs to feel above to survive. But the moment you let that ego run your emotions, peace disappears. Because anger is the ego's favorite weapon. It says, they disrespected you, show them who you are. And we obey, throwing away hours, days, and relationships just to satisfy a voice that never truly rests. Imagine two people arguing, both shouting louder and louder, both desperate to be heard, but neither is actually listening. That's the battlefield of the ego, full of noise, empty of understanding. Now imagine one of them suddenly pauses, smiles, and says, "It's okay. I understand your point." The other person is stunned. Why? Because ego expects resistance, not humility. That moment of softness disarms the entire fight. That's not weakness. That's mastery. It takes tremendous courage to let go of the need to be right. It takes maturity to say, maybe there's another way to see this. Because when your heart values peace more than pride, you no longer need to win. You realize that peace is not the prize after the fight. It's the reward for not fighting at all. You see, anger often arises when the ego feels unseen or unappreciated. Someone doesn't give you credit for your work. Anger flares. Someone questions your beliefs. Anger rises. Someone ignores your advice. Anger explodes. But beneath that anger lies the same message of, see me, value me, respect me. The ego is like a small child throwing a tantrum, not because it's evil, but because it feels insecure. When you understand that, your relationship with anger softens. You start seeing your ego not as your enemy, but as a scared part of you that needs reassurance, not power. The wise don't destroy the ego, they outgrow it. They feed the soul instead. The soul doesn't need to be right. It doesn't need to prove anything. It knows that truth stands firm even in silence. That's why the most peaceful people are often the most humble, because they've stopped feeding the ego's hunger for validation. Next time you feel that surge of anger when someone disagrees with you, pause and ask yourself, why? Am I defending truth or my ego? Most of the time, you'll find it's the latter. And once you see that clearly, the fire cools. Because truth doesn't need defense, it simply is. The ego wants to fight, the soul wants to understand. The ego wants to win, the soul wants to connect. When you start choosing understanding over victory, everything shifts. Conversations become gentler, conflicts become shorter, relationships become deeper, and most importantly, you become free from the exhausting need to be right all the time. So remember this. Sometimes peace is not found in proving your point, but in letting it go. You don't always have to have the last word. You don't always have to make them see what you see. Because true power is not in winning arguments. It's in staying calm when the ego wants to fight. When you reach that point, you're no longer a prisoner of pride. You've learned the highest form of intelligence. The art of peace over the illusion of victory. Compassion dissolves fury. It's one of the simplest yet most profound truths you'll ever discover. Anger thrives in misunderstanding, but the moment you begin to understand, it loses its strength. When you see others not as enemies but as human beings struggling just like you, your heart softens. You stop taking their actions so personally. You begin to realize that most people who hurt others are themselves hurting. Their words are weapons forged from their own pain. Their harshness is a shield to hide their insecurity. Their coldness is often just protection from a wound they never learned to heal. Compassion doesn't mean you justify wrong behavior. It means you understand where it comes from. It means you stop meeting fire with fire. Because what happens when two fires meet? They destroy everything in between. But when one fire meets water, the flame fades. Compassion is that water. It cools the heat of anger, both yours and theirs. When someone speaks rudely to you, it's natural to feel hurt. But if you take a step back and ask yourself, why would a happy person behave like this? You start seeing a deeper truth. Happy people don't insult others. Peaceful people don't shout. Secure people don't belittle. Their behavior says more about their inner state than about your worth. And when you see that, you no longer feel attacked. You feel empathy. You think, this person must be in pain. Maybe they're fighting battles I can't see. That single shift in perception changes everything. You go from being reactive to being reflective. You stop trying to punish people for their behavior, and you start understanding the suffering that creates it. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. Because compassion is not passivity, it's power with perspective. It's seeing beyond the surface of anger into the heart of the human behind it. Think about it. How many times have you acted out of your own pain? Maybe you snapped at someone when you were tired, said something cruel when you were overwhelmed, or ignored someone because you were too lost in your own thoughts. In those moments, you weren't evil, you were hurting. And if you can see that in yourself, you can begin to see it in others. That realization builds bridges where anger once built walls. The truth is, everyone you meet is carrying something heavy, a heartbreak, a fear, a memory, a disappointment. Some carry it silently, others express it loudly. When their pain collides with your pain, anger is born. But when your compassion meets their pain, healing begins. It's like lighting a candle in a dark room. Suddenly, you see things you couldn't before. You see their struggle, their humanity, their imperfection. And in seeing them, you begin to heal yourself too. Compassion doesn't mean you allow others to mistreat you. It means you can protect your peace without hating them. You can set boundaries without bitterness. You can walk away without wishing them harm. Because compassion gives you clarity. It teaches you that you don't have to mirror people's energy. You can rise above it. Imagine this: someone shouts at you, trying to drag you into their storm. But instead of shouting back, you see their pain, you see their frustration, and you respond with calm. You don't absorb their energy, you transform it. Your calm becomes contagious. Your peace becomes the mirror that shows them how chaotic they are. That's the power of compassion. It changes the entire energy of the interaction. Even in psychology, compassion has a profound effect on the brain. When you practice empathy, your body releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, which calms your nervous system and lowers stress. It literally cools the fire of anger in your biology. The more you practice compassion, the less reactive you become, because your body learns that kindness feels safer than rage. And the beauty of compassion is that it doesn't just heal others, it heals you. Every time you choose to understand instead of judge, your heart expands. Every time you choose to forgive instead of retaliate, your soul becomes lighter. Every time you choose to see the human instead of the behavior, your spirit becomes stronger. So the next time someone hurts you, before reacting, pause and remind yourself, they're suffering too. Let that awareness guide your response. Speak firmly if you must, but gently. Protect your peace, but keep your heart open. Because anger can win arguments, but only compassion can win hearts. And the person who learns to act with compassion, even in the face of injustice, has discovered the secret to never being controlled by anger again. In the end, compassion doesn't just dissolve fury, it transforms it. It turns pain into understanding, tension into connection, and chaos into calm. And when you live with that kind of heart, you don't just stop getting angry, you start bringing peace wherever you go. Silence is a superpower. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, silence becomes the rarest and most powerful form of communication. It's not the silence of avoidance or suppression, it's the silence of strength. The kind of silence that says, I don't need to react to prove my worth. The kind of silence that stands firm in the middle of chaos and says, Wife, my peace matters more than your noise. Most people misunderstand silence. They think being silent in a heated moment means weakness, submission, or defeat. But silence, when chosen consciously, is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the calmness that arises when you no longer let anger dictate your words. Because let's be honest, how many times have we regretted something we said in anger? Words, once spoken, can't be taken back. They can pierce deeper than a knife and echo in someone's mind long after the moment has passed. Silence, on the other hand, never leaves a scar. It gives space for understanding to grow. When you're angry, your mind becomes a battlefield. Thoughts racing, heart pounding, the urge to speak rising like a wave. That's when silence becomes your anchor. In that quiet moment, you hold back the impulse to react and allow the emotional storm to pass. You breathe, you let the mind settle. Because when the water is turbulent, you can't see what lies beneath. But when it becomes still, everything becomes clear. Silence gives you that clarity. It gives you control over your emotions instead of letting your emotions control you. There's a kind of silence that heals relationships. Imagine this: someone accuses you unjustly or speaks harshly. The old version of you might shout back, defend yourself, or throw insults in return. But now, you choose silence, not because you don't care, but because you understand that peace is more precious than pride. In that silence, the other person begins to hear their own noise. They start to feel the weight of their words. Your stillness becomes a mirror reflecting their chaos. That's the beauty of silence. It speaks to the heart without saying a word. Silence doesn't mean you suppress your truth. It means you wait until you can speak your truth with calmness instead of fury. Because truth spoken in anger often loses its purity. But truth spoken in peace has the power to transform. There's an old saying, the wise don't raise their voice, they raise their understanding. That's what silence does. It raises your understanding of yourself and others. It helps you see that not every battle is worth fighting, not every comment deserves a reply, and not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Sometimes silence protects your dignity. In an argument, people often say whatever will hurt the most. If you join that game, you lose a part of yourself in the process. But when you choose silence, you rise above it. You send a quiet message that says, I value my peace more than proving my point. That kind of silence disarms anger. It confuses the ego of the other person, because the ego feeds on reaction. When you don't react, you take away its food, and eventually it starves. Think about nature. The deepest truths are born in silence. Seeds grow in the quiet darkness of the soil. The sun rises without noise. The stars shine without sound. Silence is not emptiness, it's the womb of creation. In silence, your thoughts reorganize, your heart rebalances, and your wisdom awakens. That's why meditation, prayer, and reflection all begin in silence, because in silence, you meet your true self. There's also another kind of silence, the one between two people who truly understand each other. No words are needed, no explanations required. That's the silence of connection, the silence of peace. It's what happens when the heart is calm and the ego is quiet. But cultivating that kind of silence takes practice. It requires awareness, the awareness to pause before reacting, to notice the energy rising in your body, to breathe instead of explode. You'll fail sometimes, you'll slip into old habits. But every time you choose silence over shouting, you grow stronger. Every time you hold your peace in the face of provocation, you train your mind to respond from wisdom rather than emotion. Silence is not the absence of expression, it's the presence of control. It's knowing when words can heal and when they can harm. It's understanding that sometimes the best response is none at all. Because people forget words, but they never forget the feeling your energy gave them. And silence carries the most powerful energy of all, the energy of peace. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: not every noise deserves your attention, not every attack deserves your energy. Stay silent, stay steady, stay centered. Because silence doesn't mean you lost the argument. It means you won the battle within. And when you can master that, when your silence becomes stronger than their noise, that's when you truly understand what it means to never get angry again. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood qualities in the world. People often confuse it with coldness, indifference, or apathy, as if detachment means you stop caring, stop loving, or stop feeling. But real detachment is not about caring less, it's about caring differently. It's about loving without losing yourself, helping without controlling, giving without expecting, and feeling deeply without becoming enslaved by your emotions. Detachment doesn't make you emotionless. It makes you emotionally free. You see, most of our anger doesn't come from what people do. It comes from our attachment to how we think they should behave. We create invisible expectations in our minds, how others should treat us, how life should unfold, how outcomes should turn out. And when reality doesn't match those expectations, we suffer. We cling to the illusion that we can control everything around us. People's opinions, their choices, their reactions. And when they don't cooperate, frustration grows, anger erupts, and peace disappears. But detachment teaches you something profound: you can't control people, but you can control your response to them. You can't dictate outcomes, but you can choose how much power those outcomes have over your emotions. It's not withdrawal from life, it's mastery over how you experience it. Imagine walking through a garden. You admire a flower, you enjoy its fragrance, but you don't rip it out to own it. Because the moment you cling, you destroy it. That's what attachment does. It suffocates peace and replaces it with fear and control. Detachment, on the other hand, lets the flower bloom freely while you still enjoy its beauty. When you practice detachment, you start seeing people and situations with clarity. You stop reacting out of fear and you start responding with understanding. For example, if someone criticizes you, instead of instantly feeling hurt or defensive, you pause and ask yourself, is this really about me or is it about them? Most of the time, their words are just a reflection of their own inner state. When you're detached, you no longer let that reflection disturb your peace. You understand that people act according to their level of awareness, not your expectations. Detachment gives you the space to breathe before reacting, to think before speaking, and to feel without drowning. It teaches you that being calm doesn't mean you're disconnected. It means you're deeply connected, but not dependent. You love others not because you need them to make you happy, but because sharing love itself brings you joy. You help others not to prove something, but because compassion flows naturally from your peace. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Think about how much energy we waste trying to control things we never could. The weather, traffic, people's opinions, the past, the future. We exhaust ourselves in battles that were never ours to fight. Detachment whispers a gentle truth. Eve lies, let go of the illusion that everything has to go your way for you to be at peace. Let go of the idea that your happiness depends on how others treat you. When you let go, you don't lose control. You gain inner control. You stop living reactively, tossed around by every external circumstance, and you begin to live intentionally, guided by your inner calm. In relationships, detachment is essential. Without it, love turns into possession, and care turns into control. We start expecting others to fill our emptiness, to behave according to our script, and when they don't, we feel betrayed or angry. But when you practice detachment, you still love deeply. Only now your love is pure, without strings, without fear. You allow people to be who they are. You give them the freedom to grow, even if that means growing apart from you. Because real love is not about owning someone, it's about understanding them. Spiritual teachers often say, be in the world, but not of the world. That's what detachment means, to live fully, to engage deeply, but not to lose yourself in the waves of emotion that life brings. It's like standing in the ocean. You can feel the waves touch you, rise around you, even move you. But you don't drown because your feet are grounded in awareness. Detachment is that grounding. And yes, it takes practice. The ego will resist. It will say, if I stop attaching, I'll stop caring. But over time, you'll discover the opposite is true. You'll care even more, but your care will be calm, not chaotic. You'll be kind, but not consumed. You'll feel emotions fully, but they won't control you. That's the beauty of detachment. It gives you back your peace without taking away your humanity. When you master detachment, anger loses its grip completely. Because anger feeds on control, the desire to make things go your way. But when you no longer need everything to go your way to be happy, anger has nowhere to live. You become like a calm lake. No matter how many stones life throws at you, the ripples fade quickly and the water returns to stillness. So practice detachment not as an escape, but as empowerment. Learn to say, I care, but I'm not controlled. I love, but I'm not possessed. I feel, but I'm not consumed. That's when you'll truly understand peace, not as something you chase, but as something that's always been within you, waiting for you to let go of everything that disturbs it. Detachment doesn't make you distant, it makes you free, and in that freedom, anger cannot survive.